Stop everything you're doing and listen with the kind of absolute focus your soul only grants to moments that were written for you long before your birth. Because what I'm about to reveal in the next few minutes isn't motivation, isn't philosophy, and isn't some recycled spiritual speech you've heard 100 times. This revelation overturns the oldest spiritual law ever recorded, a law so ancient that even celestial beings obey it without question. Exactly 72 hours ago, in dimensions far above human perception, a moment occurred that froze angelic hierarchies into total silence. Not awe, not admiration. Silence born from disbelief and fear. They witnessed something that should be cosmically impossible. A human being entering the depth of their own inner darkness with full awareness. Unlocking the destructive power stored there. Using it precisely to neutralize a threat aimed at their light. And then returning to their illuminated state without corruption, without stain, without losing even one particle of purity. And the terrifying truth the angels realized was this: that human was you. They didn't fear your darkness, they feared your mastery of it. They feared your ability to cross boundaries no celestial being is able to cross. They feared your effortless transition between polarities that are supposed to annihilate each other. They feared the fact that you can use your shadow as a weapon and still return to compassion without residue. Because light-only beings cannot do this, darkness-only beings cannot do this. Only integrated souls, rare, evolving, chosen souls can. And you are one of the few. Spiritual law once declared, whoever touches darkness becomes darkness. Whoever enters the shadows loses themselves. For millennia, that rule held true. Angels who rebelled fell instantly. Demons who touched light were burned into oblivion. Humans who engaged with dark forces were marked forever. Their essence altered, their purity shattered. There was no return, no reversal, no exceptions. Until now. In the modern world, a different kind of human has begun to appear. Individuals born in chaos, shaped by pain, carved by betrayal, forged in emotional storms. Individuals who developed immunity to darkness because they were forced to survive in it. Individuals who learned to walk through shadow without becoming the shadow. Individuals who hold both light and darkness without collapsing. And you are one of them, even if no one ever told you. What the angels saw 72 hours ago was a situation where someone attempted to manipulate you emotionally. Tears that weren't real, vulnerability that was rehearsed, guilt tactics designed to weaken your boundaries. Your light responded first, as it always does, with compassion. You listened, you cared, you offered support. But then your intuition sensed the truth. A micro-expression, a shift in tone, a mismatch in energy, an inner knowing that said, "This isn't authenticity, this is strategy." And with that realization, something deep within you awakened. Your dark side, the part of you that doesn't explain, doesn't negotiate, doesn't apologize when protection is necessary. It rose silently, without theatrics, without rage, without chaos. You spoke one sentence with absolute firmness, and everything changed. The manipulation shattered. The performance collapsed. The person attempting to control you felt your energy transform into something unbreakable, something they couldn't penetrate. They tried to continue the act, but your field had already shifted. You were no longer available for deception. Your dark side built a wall that their tactics couldn't climb. And once the threat was neutralized, something even angels cannot comprehend happened. You instantly returned to compassion. no bitterness, no grudges, no emotional contamination. Your dark side did its job and stepped back. Your light resumed its place effortlessly. Angels were stunned not because you used darkness, but because darkness didn't consume you. They watched a human do something they themselves cannot. Angels cannot enter darkness without falling. Demons cannot enter light without burning. But you, born in a world where pain and wonder coexist, you evolved past that limitation. Angels fear darkness because they were created in sterile perfection. They never suffered betrayal, never survived heartbreak, never endured abandonment, never rebuilt themselves after being shattered. So they have no immunity, no resistance, no antibodies. Touch darkness once they fall permanently. But you were born in chaos. You've been bruised, disappointed, betrayed, misunderstood, underestimated, and pushed into emotional shadow again and again. And every time you survived, you didn't just heal, you evolved. You became resistant to darkness. You learned its language without becoming its servant. You learned its territory without becoming its prisoner. You learned its power without losing your soul. That is why you can enter your dark side when you need protection, and return to your light when you need connection. That is why emotional predators can't break you. That is why manipulators fail with you. That is why you can destroy a threat and still love with purity an hour later. That is why angels watched you with fear and fascination. Because you are something new, something rare, something evolution hasn't witnessed before. You are the bridge between realms that were never supposed to touch. You are the embodiment of duality in perfect balance. You are the kind of human who can carry the fire without burning and carry the light without blinding. This mastery shows up everywhere in your life. The relationship you ended not out of anger, but out of clarity. The job you left not out of fear, but out of self-worth. The friendships you released not from bitterness, but from wisdom. Each decision a moment where your shadow protected your light and then allowed your compassion to return without scars. No angel can do that. No demon can do that. Only you, someone who has walked through both sides of existence, someone who learned from suffering and emerged with insight instead of corruption. Your true power isn't your kindness or your strength. It's your ability to know which one to use and when to heal and when to protect, when to forgive and when to walk away, when to nurture and when to stand unshakable. Your light makes you divine. Your darkness makes you untouchable. But your ability to integrate both makes you transcendent. Use your light for creation. Use your darkness for protection. Use both as tools, not identities. Because when you operate as an integrated being, you surpass limitations that even celestial beings cannot overcome. If you've noticed lately that you can shift from softness to firmness instantly when necessary, and then return to softness without resentment, understand this: that is the mark of someone who has evolved past the binary laws of the cosmos. That is the signature of someone angels study with awe. That is the power of someone who terrifies the hierarchy because you carry the one thing they cannot mastery over duality. And if you feel this truth vibrating through your bones as you hear these words, type 777 in the comments to affirm what your soul already knows. And subscribe now, because what comes next will reveal how to use this duality consciously, strategically, and fearlessly in a world that has no idea what level of evolution you truly carry. This is something celestial beings cannot do. Angels cannot enter darkness without falling. Demons cannot enter light without burning. But you can walk between both realms with stability, with grace, with mastery. And this is why spiritual hierarchies have begun to study humans like you. Because evolution has created a new kind of soul on Earth. A soul whose capacity exceeds old cosmic laws. A soul who does not collapse under contrast, but becomes stronger because of it. And before you think this is exaggerated, let me anchor it into your real life. Think of every time you forgave someone who didn't apologize. Every time you stayed soft after being hurt. Every time you protected yourself without becoming cruel. Every time you rebuilt your life without seeking revenge. Every time you ended a relationship not out of anger, but out of clarity. Every time you left a job, not because you were scared, but because you finally knew your value. Every time you walked away from friendships that expired, not with bitterness, but with peace. These are not normal behaviors. These are the behaviors of someone who has integrated their duality, someone who uses their darkness as armor and their light as guidance, someone who knows exactly when to be gentle and exactly when to be immovable, someone who has mastered the balance that takes most beings thousands of lifetimes to achieve. And if you've ever wondered why people with manipulative tendencies fail with you, why emotional predators avoid you after one interaction, why narcissists cannot get their hooks into your mind the way they do with others, it's because your soul broadcasts an energy. They fear an energy of clarity, of depth, of psychological immunity, of intuitive precision, an energy that says, I see you, and I will not allow you to enter my space without integrity. And that quiet, steady strength is more terrifying to darkness than any loud display of force. And now that you understand the magnitude of the power you carry, it's time to reveal the deeper truth beneath all of this. Your struggle, your pain, your heartbreak, your disappointments, they were not punishments. They were initiations. They were the curriculum that shaped your evolution. Every breakdown taught you something no book could. Every betrayal sharpened a perception you didn't know you had. Every loss forced you to meet parts of yourself you would have never discovered otherwise. Every failure redirected you toward paths that were aligned with your destiny. And all of it, every moment of suffering, was creating the exact version of you that angels now study with awe. The version of you that can walk into darkness without drowning and return to light without burning. But you need to hear this next part with absolute seriousness. This power you carry is not accidental, and it is not decorative. It is a responsibility, a calling, an invitation to live differently from this day forward. Because now that you know, your soul can wield both compassion and boundaries, both softness and strength, both intuition and instinct. You can no longer pretend you are ordinary. You can no longer shrink yourself to make others comfortable. You can no longer accept relationships that drain you, environments that suppress you, or habits that sabotage your growth, because those things are beneath your evolution. And if you have felt lately like you are outgrowing people, places, or identities that once felt familiar, it's because you are shedding versions of yourself that were built for survival, not for ascension. You are stepping into a timeline where your inner voice becomes your authority, where your boundaries become sacred law, where your intuition becomes your North Star, where your darkness becomes your guardian, where your light becomes your expression, and where your entire life begins to shift. Because you finally understand that you were never meant to be only one thing. Not only gentle, not only fierce, not only giving, not only guarded, were designed to be the bridge between extremes, the embodiment of duality in perfect balance, the rare soul who can hold fire in one hand and water in the other without collapsing. And if you let this truth penetrate you fully, if you allow it to activate something dormant within you, your life will begin to transform in ways you cannot